Hello and welcome to Read Through the Word. My name is Dawn and today is Saturday, January 4th, and I am so glad that you are here. We are back to the beginning, back to Genesis. If you are just starting with us, welcome. And if you have been with us for a while, welcome to back to the beginning, a whole new year of learning new things, and I'm really glad you're here. Today we're talking about Genesis, as I said, and our key verse is taken from chapter 14, verses 18 and 19. And Melchizedek, the son or the king of Salem and a priest of God Most High, brought Abram some bread and wine. Melchizedek blessed Abram with this blessing. Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. So we know that this part of the story happens after Abram, and just, I might say Abraham. I understand at this point in the story, that's not where we're at yet, but that's just how I'm thinking of him. So if I say that, that's why. But he has assisted a group of kings in bringing back people and possessions from another group of kings that they had been that had taken them, and Abram connects with this figure in the Bible that very little is known about, which makes it so interesting. He connects with this king and priest of Salem, which is the future Jerusalem, and Melchizedek blesses Abram, and they have this encounter, and then it's over. It is so short. This information about this person named Melchizedek takes up so little time and space in the Old Testament. But what's amazing is how much of an impact Melchizedek has in the future in both the Old and New Testament, and even extra biblical sources. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Who was Melchizedek? Let's talk about this. So again, I mentioned that he was the king and priest of Salem, which was the future Jerusalem. He met with David. He brought him bread and wine, which I think is very symbolic and interesting. And the interesting part about Melchizedek is, as we go on into the New Testament, into the book of Hebrews, and also in the Psalms, Jesus is said to have come from the order of Melchizedek. So we better know what that means. That's pretty important. So this original kingship of Jerusalem that does not actually go back to David. We often think of Jesus as going back to the Davidic line of David. And that did happen. But the original kingship of Jerusalem does not go back to David. It goes back to Melchizedek. The original kingship of Jerusalem also entailed a priestly role, king and priest together. I want to talk about the Hebrew origins of the name Melchizedek. Melchizedek, or, and I wrote this in your notes, hyphenated, Melchizedek. So a hyphen in a person's name was somewhat unusual at that time and usually more resembled a title. The name is formed by the noun melech, which means king, and sedek, which means to be just. Melchizedek is not just, even though he's mentioned so little for such a short time, without, there's no introduction to him. He's just there. He's on the scene. There's no introduction and there's no conclusion. And there's no talk about it again, really. But he's important. The Dead Sea Scrolls 11Q13 mentions Melchizedek, and I put some links there where you could see the actual original pictures of the original Dead Sea Scrolls that mentions Melchizedek. But then I also just added a link that tells more about the Dead Sea Scrolls 11Q13, the oldest, the oldest documents that we have, the Dead Sea Scrolls. So also Philo, a first century philosopher and commentator in the ancient world, he refers to an encounter. He doesn't name Melchizedek, and I linked that for you too. He doesn't say him by name, but he links this encounter of Abraham to a great high priest being, and being blessed by him after Abraham's victory. And Josephus mentions Melchizedek in his Jewish Antiquities, and I also linked that for you too, so you could see that. And both Philo and Josephus mentioned the blessing of how Melchizedek blessed Abram. So the other really cool thing, though, is that David talks about Melchizedek, because we think, how important is he? He's not really mentioned. But we obviously know through oral history, through written history, whatever it was, by the time we get to David, Melchizedek was not only known to David, he was so important that David talked about how God declares the Lord, or the coming Messiah, as a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Imagine that. This completely unknown person who shows up for a short time and is gone is so important that David says that the coming, and in Psalm 110:4, says that the coming Messiah is going to be a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. I want to give some other verses here. Hebrews 5:10. So now into the New Testament. Again, the New Testament writers are saying this is super significant. Hebrews 5 verse 10 says, and God designated him to be a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. God designated him. God designated Jesus to be in the order, and an order, that Greek word can mean almost like not a copycat, but it's in the line of, it's not just in the order of, it's like a replica of. So also we have in Hebrews 7 verses 1-3, this Melchizedek was a king of the city of Salem and also a great priest of God Most High. When Abraham was returning home after winning a great battle against the kings, Melchizedek met him and blessed him. The name Melchizedek means king of justice, and king of Salem means king of peace. There is no record of his father or mother or any of his ancestors, no beginning or end to his life. He remains a priest forever, resembling the Son of God. That's what the writer of Hebrews says about Melchizedek. Also in Hebrews chapter 7, verses 15-7, it says, this change has been made very clear, since a different priest who is like Melchizedek has appeared. Jesus became a priest not by meeting the physical requirement of belonging to the tribe of Levi, but by the power of a life that cannot be destroyed. And the psalmist pointed this out when he prophesied, you are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. And then the last verse here I want to mention is from Zechariah chapter 6, verses 12 and 13. Tell him, this is what the Lord of heaven's army says. Here is the man called the branch, so prophesying about the Messiah. He will branch out from where he is and build the temple of the Lord. Yes, he will build the temple of the Lord. Then he will receive royal honor and will rule as king from his throne. He will also serve as priest from his throne, and there will be perfect harmony between the two roles. I also linked an article there from gotquestions.org. It's a really great informational article, again, detailing more about Melchizedek. But here is what I wanted, now that I've kind of given you all these facts about Melchizedek and how he's pictured in the Bible and his connection with Jesus, I want to bring those facts together into something meaningful here. So, we know that Jesus was born in the lineage of David. But the Davidic line is not the original lineage of Jesus as king. It's Melchizedek. And we know, of course, that Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, so he definitely was not of the tribe of Levi, so was not part of the Levitical priestly line, because Jesus' original lineage for his priestly role came from Melchizedek. And this is why I think that's significant. Because from the beginning of time, God's intention for us was to dwell with him. He's a dwell with us God, Emmanuel. His original intention was always to dwell with him. And this line of kings that, started with King Saul was not God's original intention. We know that. And the line of Levitical priests was not God's original intention that we would have to have a line of priests to constantly deal with sacrifice and sin. And it was not God's idea that we'd have any king but King God, but God or eventually King Jesus. And so the original source of Jesus's king and priest role came from this figure, this symbolism in that figure. I don't know. There's a lot of mystery surrounding Melchizedek. So I'm not attempting to solve all those mysteries today at all. I am simply attempting to say, here's what we know, and here's what we can gather from what we know. That Jesus transcends an earthly priestly and earthly kingly role. He's transcended it so that we can be a part of a heavenly kingdom. And yet, he brought Jesus in to an earthly role because his desire was always to dwell with us. That's so amazing to me. Jesus transcends all of these roles and in the source of a heavenly kingdom. But he still came to earth and fulfilled those roles in a human form, in a human lineage, to show us his intention from the beginning was to dwell with us. What a beautiful promise that is. So Melchizedek is important. He's a symbol of the king-priest role that was foreshadowing the role of Jesus. And we can enjoy the knowing that the role of Jesus is both king, both leader, and mediator in our lives today. Thanks for joining us, friends, and we'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.